What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Realistic CM. It's episode number 14. And we start today's episode off on the back of the defeat to Spurs with a bid for Ashley Westwood. Villarreal, the Europa League champions, wanted to take him to Spain, but we said no. And also Jay Rodriguez did complete his move to Southampton in the end for £8.25 million. Mentioned it in the last episode, man. This guy can't make his mind up. Southampton, Burnley. Pick one, Rodriguez. Well, he's chosen Southampton probably for his final few years in professional football. That's totally fine. You know, local lad from Burnley. Obviously a bit of a fan favourite, but to be honest here, 32 years old. I did say in the last episode I was planning to probably cash in anyway and look for some younger blood, as we brought in Aaron Connolly, and also Wilson's 3 years younger as well, but had to be a realistic destination. Southampton is far more realistic than Athletic Bilbao. Anyway, on deadline day we had around £8.5 million to reinvest that money into a new striker. I had 3 names on the shortlist, and I'll be honest here, I only really wanted one of them in Tyrese Campbell from Stoke, son of Kevin. Unfortunately, we could not negotiate a deal. Same with Sam Allardyce. West Brom stayed up in the game last year under Big Sam. They want to keep Grant in their team. So in the end, I had to settle for the third option, who I'm not going to say I didn't want him, but it's like, it's not exactly what I was like. You know when you're like on Hinge, right? You know when you're on Hinge or you're on Tinder, and you got a few matches, but there's one that, you know, you really want, and unfortunately they've just stopped interacting, or they're just giving you like those sort of like the one sentence answers. And then like you're talking to someone quite regularly, but they're not the one you really want. Like, you're happy to have them, don't get me wrong, you're happy to have them in the list, you're happy to have the conversation with them, you're happy to meet up for a drink, don't get me wrong, but they're not the one you really want. That's kind of how I felt about Oliver McBurney, with no disrespect to the Scot whatsoever. I mean, he represents a different option at 6'3", with the strength he's got as well. But at 25 years old, 74 overall, it was a really cheap deal, and that's what I'm really pleased about. £4 million, plus getting rid of Kevin Long as well, which was partly one of the reasons why I was happy that the deal did go through, because all due respect to Kevin Long, I didn't want him anymore. He was in the final year of his contract, he was on like 20 odd grand a week, just wasn't worth it. So I'm kind of happy we get his salary off the books, but to be fair, McBurney over Tyrese Campbell, obviously that wasn't exactly what I wanted, but it is what it is. McBurney comes in. It's a really cheap deal, to be fair, again, so maybe, just maybe, as we spent around half of the money we got for Rodriguez on McBurney, as a fourth choice option, he might be alright, you know, because again, we've got Callum Wilson's just come in. Obviously he'll be playing alongside Aaron Connolly for the meantime, because Connolly's off to a good start, 2 goals in his first 4 games, and of course we've got Chris Wood, who will return at some point, probably around December, January time, from his ACL, and once he comes back, he'll be like our second/third choice striker, alongside Aaron Connolly, with Wilson becoming our main goal scorer now. But yeah, McBurney, again, is a fourth choice option, so we won't get much game time anyway, but again, I would much rather prefer Tyrese Campbell if possible. His transfer deadline day would end, you see the top deals here in the bottom right, look at that, Memphis going to Roma for 85.4 mil, and you would have noticed as well, there were 2 big bids for Dwight McNeil on transfer deadline day. There was one from Roma, funnily enough, in the year where they went for Memphis, and also, of course, there's one from Hertha Berlin as well. Now, I mentioned this last season when he had a bid from Monaco. I'm not against cashing in them, as you see the academy update here. Oh, I can't wait to promote Alan Coughlin. I promise I will give him a pro deal very soon. But yeah, you know, I'm not against selling him to a bigger club. And again, Roma and Hertha Berlin are currently bigger clubs than Burnley. Of course, I totally understand that. But it's got to be realistic, you know, and I'm just not sure I could see Dwight McNeil lining up for Hertha Berlin at the Olympia Stadion. I just can't really see it. And again, I want to reiterate here as well. Sometimes I'll make a decision that I think is mostly realistic, and you guys might disagree. You might sit there and think, come on, mate, seriously, Dwight McNeil playing for Roma, playing for Hertha Berlin, that's definitely a possibility, and maybe it is. Maybe it is, but I'm just not sure myself. I can't always get it right, but I can try to. And I think realistically, if McNeil was to leave Burnley, I think he'd probably stay in the Premier League but go for a bigger club. The like of, again, you know, maybe a Spurs or maybe a Chelsea or maybe an Arsenal or whatever. I just don't think he would line up for Hertha Berlin or Monaco, for example. So yeah, trying to make the right decision there. The bids are really good, don't get me wrong. And again, they are bigger clubs than ours, but I think if McNeil was to leave, and we have started to see, and I'm very happy to see it as well, in recent years, British players are more willing to go abroad now and test themselves in a European country. And I think that's great, by the way, because for a long time, for a very, very long time, particularly in the noughties, if you will, it was very unheard of for like an English player, for example, to go and play for a European side. The fact it does happen now a little bit more frequently, is great. And I'm not saying it never happened, obviously, but it was a bit more rare compared to nowadays, where certain players are willing to go and test themselves a bit more in European countries. But either way, I just thought realistically I wasn't too sure about it. If he was to leave, it would probably be for a Premier League side. So we'll wait for one of those bids, unless it's a bid that's either A, too good to turn down, or B, does seem to fit the mould a little bit. Anyway, for the first game outside of the transfer window, taking on Fulham here, who again stayed up in the Premier League like West Brom last season in the game, unlike in real life, taking them on away at Craven Cottage here in West London, the back of the defeat to Spurs. We went up by a goal. Callum Wilson, 4th of the season already. What a sign. He's looking for the Magpies for £20 million, and then Josh De Silva made it 2-0 with his first goal of the season as well. And 3 minutes to go, Reece Nelson gets in behind Anthony Robinson, stops, turns, and it was a little carbon copy of the goal that we saw De Silva get as well, stepping in from the right, and that was class as well. Anthony Robinson, born in Milton Keynes, I know that for some strange reason, but of course represents America. Yeah, he got absolutely done in there by Reece Nelson. That was class. And the stop and turns in FIFA career mode this year, just FIFA in general this year, they are so OP, like really, really OP. Every single year, there always seems to be like one skill move or one combination that works like 9 times out of 10. If you've got an agile player with good balance and good speed as well, that is one thing I recommend for you guys. Stop the ball on a dime and then just quickly turn a different direction. The opposition defender normally takes a half a second to react, and that buys you enough time to get away and get a shot in on goal. Reece Nelson did that twice there on the English-born American in what was a good 3-0 victory away against Scott Parker, Jack Cork and their Fulham team. So yeah, 3-0 there against Fulham. Good to get back on track, and then taking on Wolves here, Nuno's side back at Turf Moor. And again, I mentioned it in the last episode about 6 or 7 times. If we are to challenge for a European spot, these are the guys we've got to beat. So taking on Wolves here at Turf Moor, started the game off on the front foot, looking for early goals. Won ourselves a penalty, definitely a spot kick. And you know how bad I am at penalties. But this was top bins, baby. My goodness, I surprised myself. I couldn't believe it. And maybe that's the reason why I've been getting it wrong all these years. I've been putting too much power on it. Just a feather touch. Just a feather touch, like Lee Carvalho says in his putting challenge game. Someone please get that Simpsons reference. But yeah, just a feather touch into the top right. Literally right in the corner. No chance for Patricio, who was rooted to the spot. Callum Wilson, 5 goals for the season. Already the guys off to a red hot start, though Wolves would find themselves the leveller around the 30th minute mark as NATO gives Nuno's side their equalising goal. So 1-1. Game died down in the second half after a really good first half an hour. Still tied at 1-1. There was one late chance though in stoppage time. And I told you, he was clutch when we signed him in the first episode of the season. If you watched my Middlesbrough CM a few years ago, if you watched my Swansea FM save, you'd know that Callum Wilson was known not just for being a pure goal scorer, but for coming up clutch in the late game situations. He's done it once again. He justifies that nickname. Callum Clutch Wilson. Stoppage time, virtually final kick of the game. Bends in after a great little free ball by Josh De Silva and gives us the big 3 points there at Turf Moor. I love it. I absolutely love it. That nickname is completely justifiable for Callum Wilson. Mr. Clutch does it for the first time in a Burnley shirt. He did it a few times for the Borough and for Swansea as well, and now he's already done it in a big early battle there against Nuno's Wolves. Wins us the game with stoppage time. It's 6 goals in this season already, makes him one of the top scorers in the Premier League. For £20 million, yes, he's 29 years old, but I'm telling you, doesn't matter how old he is, he'll always get you a goal. So yeah, big win there against Wolves, and following that in midweek we took on Leeds United away at Ellen Road in the Carabao Cup 3rd round, and just like in the last round against Reading where we did make it through, picked a totally rotated side for the game. It's not a priority for me, it's not something I'm worried about. It's just a game and a chance for fringe players and also young players to show what they can do in this team. And as we were trailing by 2-0, progress was almost certainly going to be ended here. But the one positive was once again we saw another goal for the 17-year-old Adam Burris coming out of the academy. Shows great potential. He's a centre forward by trade, but we're playing him up top. Clearly that's where he should be playing. 3 goals in 2 games for the 17-year-old. That's very encouraging indeed. So 2-1 out of the Carabao Cup, but again, not one bit fussed. It's a game and it's a competition we can do without, so I'm totally fine with that. Still, for the final game of today's episode, Manchester City away at the Etihad Stadium taking on the champions. And oh my goodness, 6 minutes in, well, let's just say the warning bells, the alarm bells were ringing pretty loud at that moment there. Callum Wilson goes down, stays down, and thankfully does soldier on, but he never ran off the injury. Red hot start for Wilson, but goes down early, and that was our first injury of the season, as eventually I will take him off for Oliver McBurney. City would take lead as well. Bernardo Silva fired in the opener, and then 54 minutes in. This was such a frustrating goal to concede, but it's kind of like deja vu. I talked about it before. Making tackles and stand tackles in particular in this year's FIFA is ridiculous. They are so underpowered. Made a tackle there, but went straight back to De Bruyne, who played, to be fair, a pretty amazing assist there on the ground. 180 slide tackle through ball. That was incredible, as was this as well. City going 2 goals up, almost half a deficit 10 minutes later. Reece Nelson chips Ederson, thinks he scored his third goal of the season. Fernandinho says, no, you have not. Absolutely brilliant last this interception there off the line as it stays at 2-0, and that was really our only route back into the game. Great goal line clearance by the Brazilian, and there were 12 minutes to go. KDB gets a goal after Ben Mee was robbed inside his area. 3-0 Man City, and unfortunately 3-0 become 4 as well. Sergio Aguero, who chose to stay in the game, makes it 4 with 5 minutes to go and wraps up the rout. I said it in our defeat to Spurs, and I'll say it once again here in the Northwest. Unfortunately, we're not quite at this level yet. Even though the board think we can challenge for a top 6 place, yeah, I don't think we can. 4-0 away at the Etihad Stadium. And of course, we'll give it our best, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's going to be very difficult to pull something like that off. But that won't this episode of the Realistic Arena, guys. To be fair, despite the 2 defeats to Spurs and Man City, we are in 5th place, start the season off, 13 points on the board. A very good start. The question is, can we maintain it? Have a great day, guys. Much love to you all, and I'll see you for the next episode of the Realistic CM very soon.